kept catching my son stripping the wires in the house recently. Safe to say he was grounded.
Okay. See, I think you're on the same level as me. I think we're in the same dimension of dad jokes.
You say you love it, and then your first reaction is like,
I know,
ugh.
but it's so good though, because my kids just seeing their faces, like, oh my god.
Adult beverages are poured. The kids are asleep. Welcome to New Dad Gaming. It's a show about fatherhood, gaming, and new fathers figuring out their gaming lives.
My name is Trevor, and I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Each week we try to prove that just because you became a dad
does not mean it's game over.
And we are going back this episode. This episode is very much a callback, a throwback, a introduction of retro titles we had before, just by, not of any design. This wasn't a theme we decided to build, but in doing the pre-show, it seemed like it was all previous games. And, great way to start just for myself was dipping into a bit of Diablo Immortal, of all things.
Look at you.
The
you
world,
still have that installed?
You all have phones, don't you? But, now, the reason being, so I had been enjoying Diablo 4, and a bit more on Diablo 4 in a moment, but had dropped it. The season was kind of cool, but ultimately Starfield came out. Really wanted to get into space. So just tell you what, I'll dip back into Diablo 4 later on. Now, in between times, I went through my reducing social on my phone, but there was still that time, and it'd be kind of nice, besides like reading and all the kind of cool stuff I'm doing, to like play some games. I'm like, you know what? Like, I appreciate the hatred this game got, and a lot of it well-founded. But ultimately, with my experience of it, it's like, as far as just a casual player getting a little taste of Diablo from time to time, it kind of scratched an itch. So it's like, all right, well, since I'm not scrolling Reddit endlessly on my phone anymore, why don't I kind of dip into Diablo Immortal in between, so if I'm not going to be at a full gaming session in space with Starfield, why not kind of chill out, have my phone hooked up to the controller, and give it some Diablo. It's pretty good. Right. It's pretty good. It's one of those things you almost hate to mention. Like, if you were going to be online, you would have to use a fake account because of vitriol and downvotes you're immediately going to receive from this type of thing. Have you ever dipped back into a title in between? Have you ever kind of quietly enjoyed a game people hated? Like, what's your kind of thoughts on Diablo Immortal and such a genre, if you want to call it that?
Well, I think these games are good if you can not keep it to yourself, but if it's something that can pass the time and you can grind away, because that's what this game is about, right? You have to grind to get past certain areas. If you don't mind that kind of style of playing and dipping some time in whenever you kind of have the chance, by all means. I've had games like that where I've kept on my phone and I think before Angry Birds turned really toxic, just going way back, if we go really, really way back, when my kids were born, that was a game that I kept all the time and played through until I hit that grindy paywall thing. But Diablo Immortal on your phone, I would say, should I keep Final Fantasy Ever Crisis on my phone and do the same thing? I'm not sure. I don't know if I will.
It would depend if you're liking it. It's like what I'm curious about the monetization, because if they do monetization well, it's a free game. They want you to grind. They want you to, and then they want you to pay them for the privilege of not wasting your time. That sucks. It certainly sucks. But where does it exist? Does it exist in the end game where, I want to finish the super gold mega set of armor, and the only way to do that is to grind this dungeon, blah, 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 blah. But for a filthy casual like myself, who's kind of just poking around and killing some demons, does it really hit? And I suppose I'd be curious to hear from gaming dads out there if they've hit this wall at New Dad Gaming or newdadgaming.com. In casual dad play, can you hit those type of barriers, or is there kind of have they kind of threaded the needle of, you know what, you can do it for free and have a good time?
Yeah, no, that's a good question to put out there, because I'm curious as what other games people might be playing in secret and not really coming around and saying that, hey, I still have this. I actually, now that I think of it, probably Pokemon Go is the longest lasting one I had before I finally turned it in. But yeah, I don't know. Diablo Immortal. Wow, I was not expecting that.
Me either. Just I downloaded it and started to poke at it, and you're like, you know what? It's almost like you could see the cliff coming, and you're like, well, when I get there, I'll just take a look at the view and leave.
Right. Yeah, I have the willpower. Yeah, sure.
You'd think so, right? So we'll find out. But it's interesting to get into a game that is so reviled and just kind of casually, quickly have a bit of a good time with it. But it's in between star sessions, basically.
Okay.
A quick shout out. Hey, everybody who joined me on the live stream. It had a couple folks show up. Recently, I was actually on Twitch at New Dad Gaming. I think it's New Dad Gaming Podcast on Twitch. Actually, I'd had a couple people show up, and thanks so much. It was a blast. Got to talk. We were laughing at all my gaffes in space. I was doing playing terribly, but that's sort of the funner thing of anything. So, hey, check us out if you are on Twitch, you want to join us for a stream there, besides for this podcast where we do the live recording. Check us out, Twitch at New Dad Gaming, or Twitch New Dad Gaming Podcast. Now, a thing I would consider streaming if it wasn't so far down the rankings at the moment, speaking of Diablo, is Diablo 4 is not doing great. Like, it's, if you were in the Reddit, I'm in the Reddit as far as like Diablo 4 because I have been playing it, and the tone has turned so negative. People are hating this thing, and that's one thing to hear. Then you mentioned to me about Twitch, and lo and behold, like the number one Twitch stream right now of Diablo 4, which is a month old, a massive title, is 166 viewers.
That's it. Not thousands.
That's like and for reference, like call it some random people I follow. We have Call of Duty at 1.7 thousand. We have Fortnite at 1.1 thousand. We have World of Warcraft at 2.4 thousand. Cyberpunk 2077, that's 24,000. That's Shroud.
Just came out, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's just to say, like, the volume on Diablo 4 for some reason on Twitch has just taken a ridiculous nosedive. So do you have some backstory on this that I'm missing?
Yeah, so my friends that are big Diablo fans, much like yourself, they dipped into the Diablo 4 right away, and it's actually him and his son, and they played Diablo 3 forever. They were big endgame people. They had the seasons, and they were going strong. Again, this was their jam. So Diablo 4, they plunked down, went in, and I was talking to them the other day, and they're like, yeah, we're just going to throw in the towel. Like, wow. It is not doing it for us. We're just going through the motions. That's word for word what they're saying. Like, we just feel like we're grinding away and not making any... not making any progress and not really having fun. Like before it was like they could, it was like you pick up different loot, you get different gear, you go along, you have fun with all the content that was coming out. And this one just seems like they locked it behind a really, really high tier is what I gather. Again, I'm not in it, but they're saying that like it's not even in earshot of where they are. And these are good players. Like these are people that understand the systems that maybe I wouldn't. So for them to drop it, I don't know about you, but like, is it time to call it, or are we gonna wait?
Yeah, I mean, again, so it's sort of as far as like dad play goes. Well, I don't want to disparage other dads. Like it's like I'm a dad and I'm terrible at gaming, so all dads are bad at gaming.
Yeah,
you literally just talked about dads who are amazing at gaming. So sorry, let me rephrase that. Again, much like my previous comment on Immortal, for filthy casuals. Does Diablo 4, you kind of get in and there's a bit of a season, you have a great time, and away you go? Or is that a decent pulse of the health of the game, in that you're going to have people kind of like enjoy the game and come back a little bit? Or is this sort of like the tip of the spear, in that once the streamers start to drop, once the Reddit community starts to turn, eventually that's going to like that is a grander signal to the overall game that in fact this place is not healthy, this is not a well-structured game? Like, how would you place it, do you think?
Yeah, Well, from my perspective, this is one where I've been keeping an eye on because I want a discount. I still want to get in
What's
there.
your number? 60%? Like 80%? Like what's your Jeff? When does Jeff jump in?
Okay, this is like Price is Right.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
put down $29.99 Canadian.
Okay.
That is my max for this game because I'll pay a little bit and we'll see where it goes. But also my 10-year-old, we were playing Diablo 3 and they wanted this game and we played the demo and we hooked up the demo. I think I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe one day we'll get it, but I'm going to wait because I think if the numbers drop and they drop far enough that there will be a discount until the next season or whatever the next content stream is. And I'm sure it'll bump up, but maybe it's a sit and wait for a little bit for a sale.
I like that. So as long as you can grab it if you bring your friend John A. McDonald and John A. McDonald brings a friend, which for our American viewers, that represents a $20 bill and a $10 bill. So 30 prices your get-in point. Fascinating. So, the one comment I'd seen, and your friends would know more than mine, that would be the title of the article was Diablo 3's last season proves how awful Diablo 4 is.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that. But
So Diablo 3 apparently, I think the very last bit of content has now been released, and apparently it's everything you'd ever want. Like, it's a culmination of everything they finally course corrected on that game. And now when you compare that to Diablo 4, where it is for these high tier players, and then kind of filtering through to the rest of the industry, the player base, seems like that's where they missed the mark.
Do you think it's almost on, I'm not going to say it's on purpose, but it feels like it's on purpose? Like, how do games manage to step back so far, right, and not take the lessons learned? And I know there's different teams and different environments where they work, but it just seems like they forgot a lot of that, and then we'll step it in, like, a little bit at a time. And then when you have this full package game, that's where it's going to shine. Because Diablo 3 had, like, a horrible launch at the start. And then it slowly redeemed itself, right? So maybe Diablo 4, it launched, I think, really great. I don't think there was much of an issue, but now it's just like in that like valley, and they need to go back up to kind of create some interest.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's. I don't want to be too overly cynical. It's easy to be cynical especially against a not loved company like Blizzard,
Right?
But I could almost imagine a little bit like 3 is, because if you remember a lot of the controversy with Diablo 3, and I think gaming dads would full scale hate all these mechanics, but it was like the marketplace,
Marketplace, yeah,
everything about it was just super grindy. The marketplace, auction house, sorry, I was looking for the actual name of it. Yeah. So that kind of real world monetization of a game that you already purchased for, people just hated it, right? And you almost, if you want to be really cynical about it, perhaps it was, okay, let's put out the grossest version possible, and if people happen to like it, hooray. But then what we're going to do is we're going to slowly just like bring it back, because eventually Diablo 3 has become very well loved. Like, people loved it. Like, I knew people who were playing it right up until Diablo 4 launched.
Guess what I bought it for, though? Diablo 3 was
$29.99. Yeah, dad price.
That's my dad price.
Achievement unlocked.
But yeah, like, you have a good point there, right? Where there's like, maybe it's slowly getting stepped in. But I want to put this out to you. Would you recommend like a dad buy Diablo 4 or go on Diablo Immortal?
Woof.
Because one's got the barrier of entry, right? The cost there.
Yeah, I would almost think that for a dad, it could be they could play the Jeff game, where it's like, okay, let's wait till it gets to 30. Set your price where you would feel comfortable playing it, because the story, you choose your character, you go through, you get the story, lots of fun. It is a full game. It's a fantastic time. Like, you really enjoy it. Now, $90, pricey. You can't necessarily say it. So you pick, you do your prices right. You figure out your roof of where that would go, and until it hits that, maybe stick with Immortal. So you get your taste of Diablo. Like, play around a little bit, enjoy yourself. Right. It's on the go, and I think there's a PC client too, so it's not even like you have to be on your mobile if that's not your jam. And then once once the price is dropped eventually, then you can like jump ship. I do am concerned though, like if if they want to go full greed, you may not see a discount for a year, like another 2 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it might be a year.
Especially
I'm
the 30.
holding out. I know. 30 is really extreme, but I don't know. Black Friday, Christmas, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's just especially if they fix it would be the problem.
Oh yeah.
If they don't fix it and they keep bleeding players, okay, you need fresh meat. But if they fix it and people are raving about it again, you'll see it level out. I'm telling you, like as far as like the cynical conspiratory view is, they're sitting around a board table. It's like, okay, we've pushed the suckiness this far. The suckiness is at about 90%. And we're getting, these are our returns. Now, if we bring the suck back to 80%, we'll see these type of returns. Like, they literally have the awful meter, and they're just like adjusting it to see like when is the perfect time to take in money.
But I think you're missing the important part where the guy busts in through the door and be like, "Oh my God, the new dads aren't playing it anymore.
We lost the new dad crowd.
This is it. We have to go back."
Well, when's Jeff going to play it? $30. We can't do $30. I have a family to feed, man. He should know that, of all people.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, so the gaming dads out there, are you up with the latest in Diablo 4 and can give us some insight? We'd love to hear from you. Are you into Diablo Immortal, having a great time? All these things and more. Reach out to us. Twitter @NewDadGaming or newdadgaming.com. We'd really appreciate some insight to see where you're going. Now, I had a fantastic experience this weekend with the kids. Let's get off of these garbage experiences. Let's talk good experiences for a moment. So I come downstairs in the morning. Kids are having their fun gaming time, and son reaches out to me. It's like, "Hey, could you help me with this? I got a tricky puzzle," which generally is like, that's already like warming my cold dad heart. But my concern was that like I have so little interest in touching Roblox for any reason. Love you as I do, son.
Yeah.
But no, he was playing Immortals Fenix Rising.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
My eyes like lit up, like this almost like weight just lifted off my shoulder, because we have been so deep into Roblox in this house.
Yeah.
Which feels like for months. That's all we've been doing. So to come down and see them actually playing a video game, like a great video game. Like, I love Fenix Rising, and to see them him playing away, having a great time, like trying all the challenges, everything else, like my heart was just singing. I couldn't believe it. Like, to break the Roblox hold, ever so brief.
Nice.
Let's not pretend here for a moment. Like, they'll get back on that grind, but to see them just same picture too. I don't know what happened. Maybe the Roblox server was down or something. Because then my other son was playing Minecraft.
Okay, maybe they forgot their passwords or something. I don't know.
He was sitting there just like building away on Minecraft. It was fantastic. I'm just looking at them with tears in my eyes. Like, this is stunning. Have your kids ended? Can you recall a time when your kids ended a phase to just like crazy, wonderful joy that you have? Be it Pokemon or Beyblades or Roblox or any of the above.
Well, not to like take Minecraft down a notch, but my kids were into that forever. Yeah. And then my youngest at the time, I think, who was 8, went into Zelda and Breath of the Wild and just totally blew through that thing. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Nice. This is perfect. I love it. So yeah, like even watching Immortals Fenix Rising, like maybe that's another like offshoot. You get into Zelda. It's very Zelda-esque. So that's awesome though. That's a good Roblox break. It's like a mental break for yourself, and you don't have to walk around with all those stolen games in your laptop. All this
this constant IP theft I have to deal with morally as I'm watching them play. But I just, a small victory. As I said, I think Roblox will be back next weekend. I'd have a hard time believing they will come back, but it's just, to see them playing an actual game. And this game too, like, it almost immediately made me want to play it again. Now, he was asking me for help to beat a challenge, and I failed miserably.
I was going to say, like, how'd you make out?
Awful. Okay. Because he was one of the most advanced dungeons.
Okay.
And this puzzle was just nuts. Like, timing, like perfect jumping, like it was just like bananas. And it's like, man, I have not touched this now for like a year.
Right.
And even at my peak, I ain't sure I could have done this. But
Thanks anyway, Dad.
Yeah, I guess
call my friend and ask his dad.
Again, generally speaking, though, I think with these type of games, it's really just, I cannot wait till we're retired, and you could just while away at this game, kind of quietly for like days on end, like weeks. Like this is your game for a couple of months, and you just enjoy and spend your time.
I'm telling you,
traversing the land.
that is the dream. I look at Skyrim Grandma. If you've ever heard of her, she's got a crazy following on YouTube, and all she does is she just lives in Skyrim and she reads the books and she like goes on this adventure. I'm like, oh, just take it all in instead of rushing to the next game.
And it's so slow. That's the best part that she reads. Didn't she pass? I thought she passed.
No. But everyone's saying like, we want the next one. So Skyrim Grandma's in the next Elder Scrolls, but that might not happen in time. So,
oh jeez.
So
if there's any reason for them to finish it, maybe we can convince her to do Starfield.
Yeah, maybe, right? Or mod her in there. We can.
Okay, at very least mod. That would make a lot of sense.
For sure.
Yeah. Anyways, just thrilled. I had to mention to all the gaming dads to see them drop the game that has recently caught my ire and jump back into games that I love. It's just thank God, thank goodness. Like, and
Fresh start.
I swear I'm not a Roblox hater. I can appreciate it. I really can, but I just want them to play a soup to nuts, non-theft game for a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Super happy about that. Now, what I'd like them to do is not steal games as they build their own.
Yay!
And this I wanted to ask you about because I believe you would have some experience in this. My youngest continues to ask me, like, how can I build games? Like, I want to build a game. I want to figure it out. Much to, like, my delight. Like, this is fantastic. Like, work with computers, like, learn programming a little bit, like, creative problem solving, like, across the board. This is fantastic, son. Let's get this going. So, have you worked with your kids to help them build games? And what was that like starting? Is it something that they continued? Like, what's been your experience in getting your kids to build games?
So my kids probably quite a few years ago really got into coding. Like they really wanted to build their own games, right? And so where we started, and what I kind of recommend where you start is Scratch. So Scratch is just like an online coding blocks game, and you rearrange the blocks and it creates whatever kind of game that you want or animation that you want, and you can download others and save, and it's all free. So we started kind of there and kind of experimented with that, and it went well for like a certain amount of time, and then they kind of dropped off where they wanted something a little bit more complex. They were playing more complex games, and so there were a couple apps on the iPad that we had where you had to actually like type in the code to figure out the solution to the puzzle, and that worked for a little bit. But like I mentioned with my 12, 13-year-old, they were trying to do this game making through Google, right? Through Google Slides. They had the RNG maker, they had the hit or miss spinner, all that stuff where they had all these systems set up. So it was less about the coding and more about like, hey, I just want an experience. So we've kind of dropped off the coding bit because it's just something that I found you have to ease them into it because it is work. Like, it can be very frustrating too when you have a vision. Like, even for myself, I remember I was big into trying to make games, and I think my dad bought this $400 piece of software that I don't think I really touched. Because it was like you have this vision, you want this on the screen, and it's not that easy. So you have to kind of guide them a little bit, and then just take your foot off the gas a little bit, see what they do with it, and then hopefully they'll come back. I've mentioned like RPG Maker and stuff that's a little bit easier again to kind of put in, but I want them in Unity. I want them in like build the games, right? Like learn that now, level design stuff, right? Even Roblox, like get out there and design stuff.
That I thought that would be an interesting hook if we can get them building, because they're so deep into Roblox and I love the experiences on them. It's like, you can build those yourself, right? Like you are totally able to build these things. Like we can like explore how. I'd have to, it's something I I'd have to learn by proxy because I'd have to like figure out how to do it. I think Scratch seems like a decent place to start, and then perhaps the Roblox just like to get them through. I did like with the RPG Maker also seems fantastic because you can focus a bit more on the story elements and kind of like drag people through, and the story elements of it is sort of interesting. What I liked about your family getting into D&D, and especially with your one kid being the dungeon master of it, is it allows him to produce the storylines and the arc and the interactions without having to. He still has to deal with mechanics, of course, but he's not having to code it. Like it's all just on paper and pen and paper, and able to write down like, okay, when he hits, it takes this much, and X, Y, Z.
That's where I think their interest is now, and it's less about like building the bones and framework of something that might be a platform one day. So they're very much the, what's the story? What's the creative elements? And I'll keep track of your hit points and the hit points of the enemy, and when you get a random encounter and all that stuff. But even, sorry, just off the top of my head, Minecraft. So again, I'm not totally familiar with Minecraft, but my younger 8-year-old was doing, now 9-year-old, 10-year-old, was doing there's like switches and stuff that you can code in, and they were going into the console commands and making these switches do like hidden pathways and stuff. And it's just something that they caught off YouTube and just tried to replicate and then apply themselves. It was kind of a neat thing.
Okay, so so there's some interesting angles to it to check out. So it'd be Minecraft, Roblox, Scratch seems like a good one, and even some stuff for the iPad. Okay. We'll certainly check that out and report back. Hey, gaming dads, if you've had success, I'd love to actually hear some stories, something I can apply for my kids, even as of this weekend. Reach out to us at New Dad Gaming or newdadgaming.com. Now, speaking of the story elements, a story that you've got into, we have a lot of callbacks. We have a lot of old stories. Is going back to the gross gray PS1 era, which I still contend. I love the PlayStation. Certainly did, but I don't have a lot of fondness for those games as opposed to like the old like Nintendo or like Super Nintendo especially, right? Which still holds up to this day. The PlayStation stuff, it's pretty damn janky, man.
It can show its age,
But despite that, apparently one of the greatest calls from Squaresoft was Vagrant Story, and you've started to get into it.
I don't know. It was one of those days, Trevor, where I'm like, hey, I've got all these like super modern games and they stream in 4K 60. I'm like, I kind of just want to go back and go simpler times. And that was something this was one of those games that I rented at like Blockbuster Video a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, Vagrant Story. I think I played the intro and then dropped it. And everyone talks about it like it's like this, hidden gem among the Squaresoft kind of repertoire. So I went back on emulation, and this thing is crazy. Like it is like one of those games where they like shoved all the mechanics they know in all the Final Fantasy eras and Xenogears and all this stuff, and they smashed them together in this one big game where it has all these mechanics thrown at you, which I'm still learning. But if you're not a fan of old PlayStation 1 graphics, it definitely doesn't hold up in that way, but the mechanics do, and the story elements, like the story beats in this thing, are really gripping so far. And I was actually just enthralled in the intro part and just how the cinematography holds up. So I'm in this old game, playing this old game on my now Steam Deck with perfect dad gear with save states and rewind and pauses and cheats.
Nice.
So in case I get hung up, I have my tools available.
I'll say this, like, anybody listening to this, go and watch a YouTube video of the game. This game is absolutely nothing like what I expected. Much like yourself, like I always heard about it. I always saw it. Like every especially like used game stores always had like 3 or 4 copies because this is just such a massive game, right? Like you guys, if you are not recognizing the name Vagrant Story, you'll see the cover art and you will immediately recognize it because I guarantee you've seen it. And much like yourself, like I can recall, like it was revered, like, oh wow, like Vagrant Story, like one of the greatest. This is nothing like I expected it. I have no idea what I'm watching. I have never seen this before. the mechanics and the way the fights are going is just buck wild. So
Yeah.
I encourage, like, anybody listening, go check out a playthrough of Vagrant Story, and then see if maybe you kind of get into it, because it's what has been your experience in emulating it? It's like, this is fantastic. This is like Squaresoft at its like peak, and that's like it was all downhill from here. Or is it, you know what, they were still learning their craft? Like, what has it been like for you to go back and revisit this? Like, what's kind of your takeaway as you've gotten into it now?
I think this one, they kind of, again, shoved in all the mechanics they knew about, and they weren't sure which ones hit. So it is a little bit complicated right now. And I can see them, like, a lot of these systems don't need to be here. Really. Like, they don't. They're taking up space. It's not a good thing, but it still has that narrative that was peak Squaresoft. Like, everything about it, and just even the dialogue. Again, there's no voice acting, but they murmur to their speech things, but it's all done so, I don't know, it's almost like this weird, like, it's like poetry. It just flows, right? And there's no like stop start with it. It's just, I see elements of what I liked about the old Squaresoft. But again, mechanics, not sure about. And emulating has been like, this just works, and then you can tweak it to kind of make it look better, or, you know, work for you with, you know, cheats and stuff. So
It's just like they're going so, I cannot believe it looks more akin to a PS2 game, because it really looks like Final Fantasy 12.
it has that feeling in it, and I've never completed that game, no matter how many times I start it. But it has that feeling, especially the cover art. Again, it's very Final Fantasy 12. Yeah.
Well, it's just the way they did the faces and everything else, like, it looks so akin to it. Anyway, like I said, everyone listening to this, do yourself a favor. Go check out Vagrant Story, a playthrough. And yeah, Jeff, keep us posted. Do you survive and actually beat this game?
Will I finish it? Yeah, that's a good question.
Tune in next week. Same dad time.
That's
Same
right.
dad channel. With that, we'll wrap it up there for the weeks, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. As we said from the story, if you have any comment or feedback, if you can give some tips for how to guide my kids into getting to building games, if you had your kids stop playing a particular game to your great delight, what was that like? Are you savvy to the current Diablo 4 situation and have some insight you could provide, or are you secretly enjoying Diablo Immortal and just not telling anyone? Any of the above. One of the greatest parts of this show has been the interaction with Dad, so reach out to us at New Dad Gaming on Twitter or newdadgaming.com. If you did like the podcast, you can find us on all the major podcasting networks: Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Caster, anywhere where you get your podcasts. Just search for New Dad Gaming. If you do, Jeff and I would be eternally grateful if you can subscribe and leave a rating. Doing so really helps boost the signal as we try to get out and find as many Diablo Immortal players as possible. Start that Gaming Dad clan, the first secret gaming nights that we don't have to tell anybody about.
That's right.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. This has been New Dad Gaming. Until next week, my name is Trevor, and I have a 8-year-old and a 6-year-old.
And I'm Jeff. I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old.
And just remember, just because you became a dad
Does not mean it's game over.